Hi friends, welcome back to The View from Here, the Faith Walk in Real Time. I'm sure you probably already know, but I'm Lisa Gallimore, and I just want to thank you for joining me today. And each and every time you guys show up and watch my vlogs, it just blesses my heart so much. I know you're out there, and I want to hear from you. So if you're watching, just let me know. Hook up with my website or subscribe. That would be even better. Just go to lisagallimore.com, subscribe. My stuff will come to your inbox. But one way or another, I want to communicate with you. As I stated on the first vlog, I do this so I can be in community with you, and that is the only reason, and so that we can take this faith journey together. That's the only reason I am in this, and it's for me, and it's for you, and it's for Jesus. So please let me hear from you. I want any comments, prayer requests, anything. So there you go. So today we'll get started. A couple of weeks ago, I asked that maybe if you had time, that you would read 1 Kings 11 and 12. And the reason that I wanted you to read this, in my own personal study, I'm studying 1st and 2nd Kings, which Old Testament stuff can be a little bit difficult, but man, there are so many good examples in here of just life and situations and things to do and things not to do. Today's vlog is entitled These Boots Were Made for Walking, and what that is referring to is the fact that we were made to walk in faith, but oftentimes our boots don't walk in faith. We walk in faith or we walk out of faith. We try to take situations and control them ourselves, and how that generally does not turn out well. So I'm going to introduce you to a character in the Old Testament. I don't want to say a character, it's a person. So he really did exist, and his name is Jeroboam, and he was given a wonderful promise from God through a prophet named Ahijah. And we just want to talk for just a second today about the promise and about what Jeroboam did with that promise, and whether or not he walked in or out of faith and how that came out. So we'll just start with this. And this is verse 29 in chapter 11. About that time, Jeroboam was going out of Jerusalem, and Ahijah, the prophet of Shiloh, met him on the way wearing a new cloak. So this is where Ahijah, a prophet, of course, was the mouthpiece back then of God. And they would say things. That is how God would communicate with people. So if a prophet was telling you something, especially a well-known prophet who was proven to be working for God, then you just better listen and take what he says literally, because those were literally the words that were coming from God regarding you. So Ahijah had some good news, actually, for Jeroboam, and he said, this is what God has said that he's going to do for you. I will take the kingdom from his son's hands and give you 10 tribes. So he was talking about Solomon. They were divided. I won't go through all the history of that. I'm going to let you look that up yourself. But again, I will take the kingdom from his son's hands and give you 10 tribes. I will give one tribe to his son, so that David, my servant, who was dead by now, may always have a lamp before me in Jerusalem, the city where I chose to put my name. However, as for you, again, direct promise, I will take you, and you will rule over all that your heart desires. You will be king over Israel. If you do whatever I command you, and walk in obedience to me, and do what is right in my eyes by obeying my decrees and commands, as David my servant did, I will be with you. I will build you a dynasty as enduring as the one I built for David, and will give Israel to you. So, huge promise, right? And it's right there. Now, there was something that Jeroboam had to do on his behalf, and that was be obedient and obey the commands. But it's right there, black and white, or he was hearing it directly from the prophet Ahijah. All he had to do was believe that. So, good day for Jeroboam, right? Yes, exactly. Now, let's fast forward, just for time constraints. Let's fast forward a little bit and go into 1 Kings 12. And we're going to start in verse 25. So then Jeroboam fortified Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim and lived there. From there he went out and built up Peniel. So he's busy doing his thing. Jeroboam thought to himself, the kingdom will now likely revert to the house of David. Now, where is he getting that? I don't know. If these people go up and offer sacrifices at the temple of the Lord in Jerusalem, they will again give their allegiance to the Lord, Rehoboam, king of Judah. They will kill me and return to King Rehoboam. Really? Again, where is he getting this information? The prophet Ahijah didn't mention anything about this happening. This is all stuff that's coming up in his head that he is fearful of because there wasn't the faith and there wasn't the trust. So let's see what happens next. After seeking advice, the king made 2 golden calves. He said to the people, "It is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Here are your gods, Israel, who brought you up out of Egypt." One he set up in Bethel and the other in Dan, and this thing became a sin. The people came to worship the one at Bethel and went as far as Dan to worship the other. Are you kidding me with this? And again, it's easy to look at Jeroboam and get very judgmental and say, come on, man, what are you thinking? But how many times have we kind of done the same thing? So he didn't rest in that promise that God gave him. He didn't have the faith that God knew what was best, that God was going to take care of and come through with what he said he would do. Now, before we start thinking too meanly about Jeroboam, I'm going to give you an example from my own life, because I have tried to manipulate at times situations, even when I knew they may be a gift from God, or, that I just needed to rest and be still and know and see how this was going to play out. So instead of working with God, I went ahead of God like Jeroboam and maybe operated out of fear. So quickly, and again for time, just a little bit of background. When the boys were growing up, I was raising 2 boys, of course had a husband in the house, and a black lab named Jersey, and all the boys in Jersey were all growing up at the same time and getting bigger, and we were just outgrowing our charming little house. So we entered the housing market, which a lot of people know that you sometimes kind of start slow with that, and we just decided that we needed to upsize but hadn't really decided where to go with that. So a parallel story, as I was in my work life and I was working with a client, he had expressed to me, because as we would work together, you get to know your people and know your clients, and he wanted to move. So first he tried to sell me his boat, which I just laughed, and I said, no, the first thing we need to do is upsize our house because we're growing out of it. And he said, oh, funny thing, I have a house for sale too. Gave me the address, gave me a picture, and I kindly took all the information and said, well, thank you, but no thank you. We're just not ready. We're just not there yet. Fast forward 6 to 8 months down the road, and we had decided to get a little bit more serious with this house thing, and I went out of town with my mom and my sister, and my husband was still here in town, and I love for him to do what he was built to do, and that's to be the hunter and gatherer. When we're looking for anything, when we have to invest in a car or a house or pretty much anything, I like him to do his thing and go hunt and gather, give me about 3 choices, come back to me, and then I will decide which one feels, and I do go a lot by that, which one feels good to me, which just, it seems like, the way to go. So he called me while I was out of town. He said, I looked at this house. I'm very, very excited for you to come home and see it. So long story short, I came home and I kind of drove by the house and drove by the neighborhood, and I mean, nothing just lit up for me, but I thought, okay, it's good, and we'll look at it. So we made an appointment to see it. A lot of times the homeowner is not home when you do that, but we kept our appointment. We showed up, and in the driveway, yeah, wouldn't you know it, it was the client that I worked with, and it was the very house that he'd shown me the picture of. And just right then in my heart, it was settled almost even before walking into the house that this was probably a gift from God, and this was probably the way we should go. Well, I came in, fell in love with the house, really, really wanted it, and I really felt in my spirit that this was a God thing. Well, the problem is we had to sell our little house first, and if anybody has done or participated in a sale on contingency, it can actually nix the sale if you can't sell your house. So a little bit of time went by, and I was nervous. We knew we were interested, put an offer, contingent, all of that kind of stuff, knowing full well that we could lose the house in between times. And I started to just get really nervous, and so I took a hold of the situation, and I knew at the time that my mom had the financial means that she could probably help. So I concocted this plan. I'm like, okay, Mom, if you just buy our house so we don't have to wait, and then you can just turn around and sell it, or use it for a rental or whatever you want to do. But she wasn't interested in that. Then you could turn around and sell it, but that would enable us to buy the new house. I know what you're thinking. You don't have to say it, but anyway, fortunately, my mom was such a godly, God-fearing Christian and wise mom that she said, I'm not going to say she didn't think about it maybe for a minute, but she said, Lisa, this just doesn't feel good. This is not being faithful. And where is your faith? This just is not the right thing to do. So thank you, Mom, that you kind of put the kibosh to that. So at that point, then I just had to rest in faith that it was going to be what it was going to be, or it wasn't going to be. And lo and behold, we were camping. We left the house and we went camping. We were going to show it for the first time. And the first couple that came through put an offer on the house, and they ended up buying our little house, and that enabled us to be here. See, if I just would have rested, if you just be still and know, it makes all the difference in the world. So there's the difference. And these stories are often not easy for me because it reveals a part of my character that I don't really like to reveal. But I'm doing it just to let you know that before we point our fingers at Jeroboam and say, how could you walk outside of God's promises? How could you be so unfaithful? Don't we do it, especially when it's something that our heart desires, and then we often don't trust God for it. So instead of walking with Him, we go ahead of Him, we try to control circumstances, and we try to uncontrol situations. So my sister and I were having a conversation once, which, hi Vicki, I hope you're watching, and she said, if in doubt, don't. And I absolutely love that. If there's something that you're just really not sure about or doesn't feel good to you, chances are you're operating outside of that faith and that obedience. So take a minute, take a breath, think about it, get godly, wise counsel if that's what's necessary, and then you will understand and know whether to move forward or not. So that is my word of encouragement today for you, is cooperate with God, listen to His promises, believe His promises, don't go ahead of Him, don't try to manipulate circumstances to turn out the way that you want them, and rest in faith. And if the situation doesn't turn out the way you envisioned it, it's okay. It really is okay. He knows best. He has your best interest at heart. So there you go. There's your encouragement for the day. Thank you so much for being with me today, for tuning in. It's been delightful to have you here. I hope you will join me next week when you see this pop up. Again, it's going to be from someplace fun. I think you're going to enjoy it. And I am just so blessed to have you here, and I hope it is blessing your heart as well. See you next week.